Where we were born, where we live, work, and play all have a great impact on our health and well-being. We refer to these as the social determinants of health, and research has shown that these determinants have as much impact or more impact than our genes and the health care that we have access to and receive during the course of our life. When communities and policies are healthy, we can make healthy choices. In the program you're about to watch, you will see a variety of different experiences across Minnesota. You'll see families who were exposed to mold in their home. You'll also see examples of community gardens and the ability to bring healthy food choices to people where they live and work. These are things that make a difference in people's lives. Social determinants of health are critical for us to focus on in order to really address the root causes of much of the health care challenge that we have in our country. Our health care bill in Minnesota is $31 billion, and social determinants of health are contributing significantly to that total. So it is critical that we focus on these social determinants and make a difference in the healthy lives of our community.
Across Minnesota, in suburbs, small towns, large urban centers, where we live is just as important as how we live when it comes to our health. The health of children is especially dependent on having high-quality care and learning, safe and affordable homes and neighborhoods, and a healthy indoor and outdoor environment. These are known as social and environmental determinants of health. These factors affect our health as much as our genes, access to medical care, and lifestyle choices. While the U.S. spends more than any industrialized nation on medical care, it's not buying us better health when it comes to many key indicators. And here in Minnesota, often ranked one of the nation's healthiest states, we have deep ethnic and racial disparities. To close this gap, new approaches are needed that improve health and opportunity for all. Throughout the state, partnerships are bringing together organizations from the health, early childhood, housing, and environmental sectors to take action at the community level. Their vision and actions are leading to changes that will help ensure that more Minnesota children are growing up healthy.
Growing Up Healthy, Kids and Communities is a co-production of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota Foundation and TPT's Minnesota channel.
When children are in those first 5 years of life, they're incredibly vulnerable. And that's the moment when those connections can begin and be made the strongest. If we can connect families into the school system before they even enter kindergarten, then there's a much higher likelihood that they're going to be ready for kindergarten when they arrive and ready to learn right away. We know that if children are being raised in a home that is tightly sealed, that there's not mold or moisture coming in, that they're not being exposed to all sorts of other asthma triggers, that they're likely to have a healthier life all the way through life. And so the earlier we can catch them and put them in a stable situation, the better.
We really need to be saying it's not just about personal responsibility. We need to be looking way upstream and saying, so what is the community doing to set up the individual to behave in this sort of way? What's happening inside the family structure? What's the health of the home? Can they behave in ways that are healthy for them, or is that really impossible because of the way that this home is figuring into their risk for health and mental health issues?
One of the classic examples would be around lead, if you will. So a child can go in and be treated by the healthcare system for lead poisoning and goes back to the same environment in which the lead poisoning took place, and we actually could be looking at that child repeatedly coming through the healthcare system, being treated appropriately each time by the system to take care of the lead poisoning that they've been exposed to. But it really doesn't get to the root cause. The root cause is the fact that the home has lead paint in it in the first place. And so when you really look more broadly at this as a social determinant of health issue, you would go into the home and remediate the home so that you don't have the repetition of the child being exposed to lead.
We're interested in looking at the association of housing quality and health.
These kids are our future, they're an investment. We all depend on these kids growing up to be healthy and productive citizens.
Researchers are proving that living in structurally safe and environmentally sound homes and neighborhoods helps set a child on a track towards a healthy future.
Our focus has been to try and put some data and some analysis out there that proves that housing in fact does improve health.
They sick every winter. They will be in the hospital. They sick with asthma. They sick with asthma. My oldest daughter, she's almost died on me because of asthma. I don't know, I didn't figure out what that happened.
Abang Ajulu speaks from experience. Years ago, while living in Worthington, Minnesota, this mother of 6 saw her daughter become increasingly ill. It wasn't until the family moved to a recently renovated apartment complex that things began to improve.
These buildings were built in 1974. They had a lot of issues. They had very old windows. They had old siding. They had a flat roof. And we had many, many leaks. We had moisture problems. We had mold problems. We had asbestos problems. And we had radon problems. So there was a lot of issues when we acquired the property.
Children are not just little adults. They are different. Pound for pound, they breathe in more air, they take in more food and water, and so if there's contaminants in those media, then they're especially susceptible.
We got rid of the flat roof. We actually added more insulation on the outside walls. We added Energy Star windows. We actually put radon mitigation systems on all the buildings to be able to reduce the amount of radon coming into the units, into the buildings.
This is the very first study of a low-income housing rehab job that actually looked at health consequences of the rehab. So there have been some other studies of new construction for asthmatic children, but this is really the nation's first study to look at health before the rehab was done and then compare it to health after the rehab was done. Children grow up in these homes, their health will be impacted not only for the immediate future, but for their lifetime. So for example, the fact that we've been able to eliminate mold problems. We know that mold has long-term health consequences. We know that asthma causes declines in school performance. If kids don't do as well in school, they won't have as good a job, they won't be able to contribute to society as fully as they ought to, and over their working lifetimes, they will actually earn less. So these health improvements will last for a lifetime.
We know that early physical health is a predictor of later physical health. So if you can set a child up to have a healthy start to their physical development, you're increasing the likelihood that they're going to be healthy adults.
All of these will have long-lasting consequences, frankly, not only for the people who live in this particular housing development, but for the nation as we try to integrate some of these concepts, which in a certain level seems like common sense, but integrate them fully into the way in which we educate our population as well as house them. I think the public health community is now realizing that housing matters. It's not just an economic problem for the nation, it's also a very key component of how our population's health is going to be affected. It makes no sense to be able to find the financing to put people into homes and then have them pay for a huge medical expense if the homes are not healthy. So these things go together, it seems to me. They're really part of the same puzzle. We asked all the participants whether their home had increased or decreased dampness or broken leaks or water pipes, and that went from 33 to 7%. We asked them whether the home has a musty or moldy odor, and that went from 25 to 0%. The prevalence of cockroaches went from 25 to 19%, and importantly, the use of insecticides went from 19% to 0%. So there's a lot of numbers that we can put out, but I think the bottom line is clear, and that is that when you make these kinds of investments in housing, you can have demonstrable real benefits that are measurable for both children and adults living in the units.
Since I moved to Viking Terrace, no one sick in my family. Or everybody healthy now. I don't have no worry. I'm okay with my life right now. because I don't see my kids sick. When you live in a very good area, a very good house, you get healthy.
About 170 miles northeast of Worthington are the communities of Faribault and Northfield. Through the Rice County Growing Up Healthy initiative, low-income residents and community leaders are working together to identify issues and solutions that will make the community healthier.
We have one team in Northfield, it's the Viking Terrace neighborhood. One of the efforts that they've just recently done, they identified in the neighborhood that most of the families don't have yards for the kids to play. And so when they are out playing, they're playing in the street. And there are traffic signs that say the speed limit is 10 miles an hour, but nobody follows those. They're speed bumps, but everybody knows right where they are. And so we got some signs that they're shaped like little men, and they've got a big flag and they say slow. And they have been placing those strategically in the middle of the street at times when kids are out playing, so that it's a very visual for all of the cars coming through that they do need to slow down and let the kids have a safe place to play. Can I ask a question about internet access in Viking Terrace? Is there any sort of generalized access available?
No, most people who have internet there, they ask for phone, by phone.
They do it through the phone lines?
The phone lines or directly. Outside companies.
Okay, or through the TV, but it's, okay. But so there's each individual home is doing it, there's not a neighborhood Wi-Fi or something in place?
It would be nice.
It would be nice. Well, the general nature of the meeting, we have what we know as our advisory board, and those are representatives from all of our partner organizations. And it was one of the opportunities in which we like to get our team leaders together with the advisory board so that they can share information. And it's a two-way conversation, because it has to do with the neighborhood leaders can bring information from the residents in their neighborhood about what's going on, and they can ask for feedback. This is our idea, this is a project we'd like to do. You all as board members have these connections in your professional world. Can you help us access resources to make this happen? So the next project is looking at, there are many of the manufactured homes need repairs.
Ahorita hay personas que van a donar, pueden donar madera o que trabajan en construcción diferentes áreas.
So right now there are people who work in construction who might be able to donate materials, wood, and some other things.
We want to be better community here, and now with this help, we can show the community outside the Viking Terrace for Northfield that it's not a bad community.
Buenas tardes, ¿cómo está? Mi nombre es Gabriela Nieves. Hola. Mi nombre es Lucy Velázquez, con permiso.
Hola, señora Velázquez, ¿cómo estamos? It doesn't really matter whether you have a brand new house or a really old house. There's going to be something that you can do to make it a healthier environment. So it's pretty deep in the soil. It's kind of like a deposit.
In St. Paul, the Eastside Neighborhood Development Company works with landlords, renters, homeowners, and daycare providers on green building techniques and practices that lead to better health. And they're finding low-cost ways to have a greener, healthier home.
The point of this whole initiative is trying to get people to understand that it's not something just for those that can afford it. It's something that needs to happen everywhere, because we need to be aware of the things that impact our health and our safety and our comfort. It's going to be nearly impossible to create an environment that is completely safe, healthy, green, sustainable, 100% forever and ever. And so it's much more important for somebody who's looking to make healthy changes to prioritize their needs and to take a look at what's most important to them.
You need to make sure that the appliances that run those systems are healthy. Are they giving off carbon monoxide, for example? Do you need to update them or replace them? That checklist includes things like what's underneath the kitchen sink. You know, what kinds of chemicals are there? Are they stored properly? There are also behaviors that come into play. How is cleaning the home being done?
Unsafe exposures to many household chemicals and pesticides have harmful impacts on health, particularly for children. Informing people of this is the goal of Photo Voice, a unique exhibit touring the state.
What we were trying to do was understand women's attitudes and beliefs and needs in terms of their informational needs about pesticide use in the Red River Valley. And so we visited women from 3 different communities. The community here in Moorhead were a group of refugee women or former refugees. In Halleck, they were a group of mostly farmers' wives and farmers. And then we visited with a group of women on the White Earth Reservation.
The purpose of getting those photos and those stories together is really to help open up a dialogue with the broader community so that people can see, you know, what's going on here. Is this an issue that we need to address? How might we address it? And really get a much broader community conversation going. So we gave each of the women in our groups a camera, and about 5 or 6 weeks later, they brought their pictures back. So as they were showing us the pictures that they selected as kind of the key pictures for them, they told the story about what that photo means.
One of my favorites was of my son Christopher holding a big basket of strawberries. Me and the kids go every year and pick strawberries at a local strawberry farm, and they're just so much better than the ones that you get at the store, and the kids just enjoy it as an outing. You know, it's something we can just go and do together.
One of the distinctive ones that I had was the fog for mosquitoes in our town, and how, you know, basically you have no warning, and so all our toys are out in our driveway, and so I had, you know, I always try to put the kids in the house, but you just really don't have time to catch all your toys and get them inside. And then a couple of the other photos I took were, I try to have a lot of household cleaning items that are non-chemical based, so I use some microfiber cloths and some plant-based cleaning products too. So yeah, so I took some pictures of those and tried to show how my kids are kind of helping clean, because everything is pretty safe. I started when my oldest daughter, who's 7 now, when she was a baby, and I was cleaning her high chair with wipes. And I was reading on the bottle about all the hazards and the caution statements, and that really scared me, and I thought, my gosh, this is her tray that she eats all her food right off of. And so that's when I started looking for alternative sources of cleaning that wasn't going to, you know, harm my children. And I hope that it does create a lot of awareness, just for, I hope in a micro level, for people in their own homes, just to be aware of all the chemicals and things that they're using.
The less they're exposed to pesticides, the healthier they'll be.
Do you help Mama clean?
Yeah. Through the Photo Voice Project, a first-of-its-kind curriculum was developed that public health nurses like Pam Hochstetler can use with clients to help them reduce their family's exposures to toxic chemicals.
The trainer material that we went through is wonderful, because I'm able to pull bits and pieces and use what I need maybe for the home visiting program. I have a special one for you. This one's for you. Mommy will help you, because those are stickers to put on your phone in case you need to call for help. And depending on the family, part of my job is finding out where they're at. As far as mosquitoes, stay away from repellents that have DEET. You don't want to expose your children to DEET. A lot of times you don't think so much about situations you haven't experienced yourself. A lot of the women were from rural families, and maybe their husbands did the spraying, that it was their own farm, and you know how their husbands were handling the chemical, and right down to how they launder the clothes that they wear when they do that, and the potential exposure to kids if they didn't. You know, a lot of bits and pieces that we hadn't thought about. So it was interesting. How many? So it gives me an opportunity to share that information with them. 4, 5? 10! Oh my goodness! That's lots of puppies.
I like this party. It's fun. Because there's lots of people and it's fun, and there's lots of people playing, and you get to play with the people.
Yeah. What's his name? Abdirahman. Abdirahman? Yeah.
Another way communities are becoming healthier is through gatherings like this one back in Faribault. Here, Somali families regularly meet with neighbors to connect with one another, which helps reduce the stress of being new in a community.
Oh, very nice. Wow.
I think stress is probably one of the major factors in the social connectedness piece, that if you have somebody that you can talk to about your issues, if you know that should something come up, I know who I can call to ask for help. If my car dies tomorrow, but I have to get to work, I know somebody that I can ask for a ride. Whereas if you don't have that social network or those connections, then having your car die means you lose your job. It means your family doesn't have food. It means all of these other things that we know have a significant impact on health. Our overall goal is to improve the levels of social connectedness experienced by marginalized families who have children from birth to age 5. We're talking about those families who aren't connected to other families, to resources within the community. They knew the services existed somewhere, but they didn't know how to get to them. They didn't know how to access. And it became clear that once somebody is in the loop, then they have access to all of these other programs and services. But figuring out how to get in that loop is really complicated. And when you add on top of already existing factors like socioeconomic status, but you add on top of that somebody who doesn't speak English as their first language, or somebody who's got other sorts of barriers, like they don't have access to transportation, they don't have access to the internet, it's nearly impossible to find out some of this information. And yet our service providers as partners heard this information and said, we bombard the community with information. How can they not know? And it has to do with the fact that they're bombarding the same people over and over, and then there's this subset of families who aren't a part of that target audience. If we want the residents of the neighborhoods that we're targeting to be able to improve their lives, the rest of the community has to be on board too. And so we need to make sure that everybody understands the social determinants of health and the impact that all of the different social factors have on all of our health, but particularly on the families that are the most marginalized.
They're growing up healthy.
Building socially cohesive communities that are healthy places to live, learn, and play is a common goal of these partnerships. A project that grew out of the Northwest Regional Sustainable Development Partnership helps the people of Northwest Minnesota gain better access to locally grown fresh produce.
The sort of third finding, or the third recommendation that came from the Photo Voice project after raising community awareness and providing some training to us, is improve the access to fresh fruits and vegetables that are grown in a sustainable way. And that's taken a kind of a different look in the different communities that we're working in. The Fargo-Moorhead area has a Probstfield organic community garden where, as individuals or as groups of people can rent a plot.
People don't have access. They don't have the wherewithal, the income, the ability. Many people don't have the ability to get those foods. So, and that's a responsibility that we all bear, but especially the people who know that it's the best thing for us. I would be irresponsible if I didn't try to change the environment in which we live so that everybody has access to a healthy environment, so that they have access to healthy foods, they have access to places where they can be physically active, they have access to clean air. I think it's important for the community as a whole to get together to try to figure out how everybody can have access to healthy, fresh foods. There isn't an easy answer to that, but it really has to do with priorities that we set in our community.
In the Hallock area, in the very northwest part of the state, several of the participants in the Photo Voice group joined a CSA, a community-supported agriculture farm. These last 2 years that they were participating in a CSA, it was actually near Crookston, so it was about 80 miles from where they live. They took turns picking up the produce there. As a result of that interest in a CSA model, a family from near Hallock has initiated a CSA this year.
Yeah, peas and beans over there, and here, beans, potatoes, and onions.
Those two, they're 10 and 12. And so we want this to be successful. So we're providing guidance, but they're doing lots of the planting, and hopefully when the weeding hits, that's when they really kick in.
That looks pretty good.
I mean, basically you go home with a box of whatever's ripe that particular day or that particular week.
Another benefit of the CSA model is that buying directly from the grower reduces transportation costs and helps the environment.
When you get it fresh, it's just so much better. And I think anything we can do to be a little more healthy, or, you know, any little thing we can do is important.
In the White Earth area, the White Earth Tribal and Community College has been really active over the last several years in helping to and providing programming through their extension service for wild food foraging. There's a real effort to connect the traditional cultures with the younger kids in the community.
I'm going to dig up a dandelion root too, because that's one of my projects that I have to do. My goal is to establish a primary relationship between the people I'm working with and the earth, and the gifts from the earth and the love from the earth. And then just kind of let them meet each other. Child meet earth, earth meet child. You know, touch one another. When they're touching the earth is touching them. So to kind of instill some of those hopefully lifelong things. And then just to expose them, because some of them, their parents don't garden. And they don't have any chance to see what it's like to pick beans or that kind of stuff.
My daughter Addie over here, you know, she just thought that was the greatest joy and the greatest thing, you know, to get in there in the dirt and feel Mother Earth and to be able to plant something herself. In her little hands, she was trying to put the little seeds in there and trying to understand, well, how does this work? And she comes over every day and she looks in the boxes and she looks at the tomatoes, and, you know, it's a way for her to understand and to take care of something, you know, something else needs to be taken care of. She's got a part in life, you know, that part of having something grow. You know, so I think it'll be a lot of fun because I just see the look on her face.
We're seeing a real increase in interest in people growing some of their own food. There's also just a great interest in people knowing a little bit more about where their food comes from. Farmers markets and CSA gardens in Minnesota and across the country have seen a lot of increased demand in the past 4 or 5 years.
So the question remains, why advance this upstream approach to creating healthier communities?
Beyond it's the right thing to do, I think that we all benefit. We have an economic benefit in that we